Hi, I'm Ian Shasky. I'm an educator here in Rhode Island. I want to preface by saying that as an educator in Rhode Island, I do not inherently have anything against charter schools. I think school choice is great. My problem is with how the funding is allocated between charter schools and traditional public schools, especially as they do not have to abide by the same rules. You want to talk about fairness here, as someone mentioned earlier. Woonsocket Education Department is legally obligated to educate every and all students in Woonsocket. Rise Prep is not. There are students that Rise Prep is physically incapable of educating. Those kids have to go to Woonsocket, which they bear a tremendous cost. The RICR says there is no legal mechanism to expel students from a public school in Rhode Island. Yet in Rise Prep's own student handbook, it says if you don't abide by their rules, they can remove you as a student somehow. So where do those kids go? It's the Woonsocket Public School Department, where they have to be put into expensive, self-contained, behavioral programs that the Woonsocket School Department bears at tremendous cost. How is any of that fair? It is inherently much more expensive for Woonsocket to educate students because a lot of their students require more expensive, programs and processes. This transition will cost Woonsocket School Department 5 to 6 full-time teachers in terms of funding. That's 125-ish kids that are going to have to be dispersed into already packed classrooms. How is that fair? We're talking classrooms that are pushing 25, 26, maybe even 30 kids per classroom. Ask any educator in the state if any classroom over 18 kids is manageable, okay? This change will benefit 500 kids at Rise Prep at the harm of 5,500 hardworking kids in the Woonsocket School Department. I have to ask the board here, how many of you currently have a child enrolled in Rhode Island traditional public school? How many of you have even taught in Rhode Island traditional public school in the past 5 years, 10 years? Things are a lot different now, okay? Have you talked to anyone, any family from a student enrolled in Woonsocket Public Schools, any teachers there? So how can you make these decisions?
You obviously don't know our background very well.
Oh, I looked every single one of them up.
Okay.
Every single one of them up before I came here.
You don't do that.
I'm not.
Thank you. Okay. We have on our list, this person here is Representative John Brown. Good evening.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you. And thank you for allowing us to speak this evening. My name is John Breen. I am from Woonsocket. I represent District 49, which is Woonsocket and North Smithfield. I'm here tonight to oppose the amendment of the Rise Prep Charter that has been presented before you tonight. Quite simply, I guess there's a lot of reasons, and there's plenty of people here who can tell you why it is not a good idea to go forward with this, but I will tell you this. I think the brakes should be tapped a little bit here. This can't be put into effect until the next fiscal year. We are starting a new session tomorrow. We've got, in a rare point of togetherness here, we've got the Senate and the House who we will work together and we will get the support to legislatively tap the brakes on this if we have to. I think we should all come together and make a decision together and talk a little bit more before this gets implemented on the city. But I will ask you this question. You sit here tonight, and I thank you for sitting here in this room. I know we're all doing this because we care about Rhode Island. But you've got an elected school committee which unanimously opposes this. You've got a city council which by a vast majority opposes this. You've got a House and Senate delegation that oppose this. So my question is, how does a bureaucratic situation like this council administratively put something on Woonsocket that is absolutely against the interests of the city? And how does a bureaucratic administrative act happen where a group of people sitting in a room that literally have no connection to the city of Woonsocket whatsoever will say to us, well, notwithstanding all of your elected leaders and the elections that have happened and everything that's happened, we know better for you than you know what's good for you. Now that is the kind of administrative action that I find to just completely usurp the power of the people. The people have spoken. None of us made our positions unclear. Everybody knows where we stand. So I don't understand how it's possible that tonight you could say, well, notwithstanding the fact that Rise Prep continues to move the goalposts, we're going to do this at the detriment to the city of Woonsocket. Ladies and gentlemen of this board, listen to the elected leaders of Woonsocket. I have no special interest, need to come before you tonight, other than I love my city, I represent my city. And I know, and I have no quarrel with the students, I have no quarrel with the teachers, I have no quarrel with the kids. I do have a quarrel with the board that is about to do something without listening to the people who are elected to represent the city. Listen to what they say. Don't rubber stamp this. And let us not have a situation where we have to have a legislative back and forth, court actions. It just gets messy. Let's keep it clean. Let's talk. That's what I think the best mode of operation should be here. Not a bureaucratic usurpation of the elected power. Thank you.
Senator Melissa Murray.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Melissa Murray, State Senator for District 24, Woonsocket and North Smithfield. I am here before you to ask you to reject Rise Prep's request to transition from a mayoral academy to an independent charter. My objection is not political. I'm not here to pit charter schools against public schools. I'm not here to disparage the work of any teacher or the education of any student. Tonight, you have already heard from and you will hear from multiple elected officials who have decades of fiscal experience overseeing Woonsocket's education department's budget and the city's budget, including 3 General Assembly members like myself who have previously served on the Woonsocket City Council. All but 2 of Woonsocket's elected officials, from the school committee all the way to the state senate, all with different political backgrounds, different experiences, and in some cases, vastly different policy perspectives, are all asking you to reject this proposal. And all of us have firsthand knowledge of the fiscal challenges we face as a city. We all can't be wrong. I would just like to call your attention Rhode Island General Law 1677 process for consideration of a proposed charter expansion. The council, meaning you, shall place substantial weight on the fiscal impact of the city of town to ensure that the proposal is economically prudent for the city of town. That's state law. I'd also like to remind you that for the past 2 years, the governor's proposed budgets have cut state education funding to urban districts like Woonsocket. It was only through the actions of the General Assembly, the House and the Senate Finance Committee on which I sit, that those cuts were restored. And considering the deficit that we are facing as a state, I will be shocked if the upcoming budget proposed is any different than the last 2. With that in mind, I implore you to put the brakes on this proposal and at the very least, put it on the back burner until we can figure out a fair and equitable solution that properly funds all schools. Thank you.
Thank you. Representative Robert Phillips.
Good evening, all. Thank you for having us here tonight and letting us speak about this issue here. I'm going to come from a different point of view. I've been contacted since Rise has been in there and they want to expand to a high school and that. A lot of my constituents have come to me and asked a lot of questions. What the impact on the public school system in the city of Woonsocket, what's going to happen with the fiscal unit on the city side, etc. So I've gone to Ride itself and I've spoken to them. And then they found that the next step was the towns of North Smithfield and Burrowville have asked to be relieved of the fiscal responsibility in sending students to Rise. They took votes and they all voted to not send them anymore. But then when I talked to Ride, they said because they signed the charter, the mayoral charter, they are obligated to do that. So it's this move a way for them to get out of that mayoral charter and go to a different type of a charter, which will alleviate the responsibility of those two communities from sending people or sending students to them and or being fiscally responsible. That's the question I have. I don't know if anybody has an answer. I haven't had time to talk to Rhode about that last question. Is if the change in this charter going to serve that purpose of alleviating those two towns from their obligation when RISE first started to what they need to do now? Thank you for your time. And if you can send that to all of the delegation, as Senator Murray said, 16 out of 18 of the elected officials in the city are opposed to it. Mainly because of our constituency is giving us a lot of questions and a lot of pushback.
Steve, can we get that sent to?
Thank you.
very much. Representative Brian Thompson.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Brian Thompson, and I represent Senate District 20, encompassing Cumberland and Woonsocket. I am here to express my strong opposition to RISE Prep Mayoral Academy's request to transition from a mayoral charter school to an independent charter school. This request is not merely administrative. It poses a significant threat to the accountability and financial responsibility that underpin our public education system. RISE Prep claims financial challenges necessitate this change. If we are being honest, all urban public schools, including those in Woonsocket, face similar fiscal pressures without seeking to evade responsibility. Approving RISE's request could exacerbate the financial strain on our already struggling schools and disproportionately impact the most vulnerable students. Furthermore, the so-called political challenges RISE faces are largely self-created, stemming from a concerning pattern of mismanagement and lack of transparency. It's noteworthy that 16 out of 18 elected officials in Woonsocket oppose this change, reflecting the community's desire for a public education system accountable to students, parents, and taxpayers. I urge this board to reject RISE Prep's request and uphold our commitment to serving all students in our district. Approving this transition would divert taxpayer dollars from public education and erode the trust of our citizens place in us. I thank you for your time and have a great night.
Thank you, Senator. Damon Flynn.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Council, for the 2 minutes. My name is Damon Flynn. I'm a proud parent of 2 RISE Prep scholars. They're here with us, Logan Flynn, 8th grade, and Julianne, 4th grade. I'm a homeowner, taxpayer, and an active volunteer with the Woonsocket Housing Authority, Stadium Theater, and the Woonsocket Parks and Rec. I stand before you today to express my strong support for RISE Prep Academics' proposal to transition from a mayoral academy model. As both a parent and Woonsocket taxpayer, I am increasingly concerned about the unfair financial impact the current funding formula has on my child's education and the education of others at RISE Prep. Over the past 6 years, RISE Prep has received less and less of the local share funding for their scholars due to a specific aspect of the funding formula. Much has been discussed about how much Woonsocket Education Department stands to lose in terms of dollars. But what is often overlooked, how my own child, along with other students at RISE Prep, stand to lose because of the way the funding formula essentially claws back money from our child's education. Jenny Claire and I made the decision to send our children to RISE Prep because we believe in the school's mission. But that decision comes with a significant financial cost to their education. If my 2 children attend the schools within the Woonsocket Education Department, they would receive their fair, full local share, approximately $2,600. However, because they attend Rise Prep, they only receive $957 annually. Even scholars at Beacon Charter, an independent charter school just down the street, receive $2,000 annually from the local share. This inequality due to the funding formula clawback is a direct disadvantage to my children's education. This funding discrepancy stems from the fact that Rise Prep currently contributes to a 401k plan instead of the traditional pension plan for its educators. To resolve the inequality and ensure that my children as well as other students at Rise Prep receive the funds they are rightfully entitled to, the school is seeking to join the pension system. This would allow the funds to be properly allocated to the students and ensure the outstanding educators at Rise Prep, many of whom have been with the school since its inception, can benefit from the pension participation. Additionally, I believe that transitioning Rise Prep out of a mayoral academy model will help alleviate the time, effort, and energy the school's leadership spend fighting local political battles. These distractions often have little to do with the school's mission and take away the important work of educating our children. By removing itself from the mayoral model, Rise Prep will be able to focus more on increasing academic, mental health, special education needs of the children, which grow every year. To address the claim that Rise Prep operates on a parallel, I'm sorry, 2 minutes. Last paragraph.
If you notice, we
I'm sorry.
didn't stop anybody.
I'm so sorry.
But,
Last paragraph? 2 seconds. My children are Woonsocket kids. Rise Prep Academies are Woonsocket schools with Woonsocket students. It's time we allow Rise Prep to make the necessary pension adjustments to better fund our children's education, honor family rights to make educational choices, and provide support necessary for our school's leadership to focus on what truly matters, educating our kids.
thank you.
Sorry for the overtime.
Just please keep in mind that we're not, when you play the music, we're not asking you to hands off, but just be mindful that the tune is up and you can finish your work. Thank you. Okay, so.
I thought someone was getting a phone call, I'm sorry.
If anyone didn't get that, that's the buzzer. Very classy. Nathan, Davio.
Good evening. My name is Nathan Davio, and I'm here to support the transition for Rise Prep. You all say that you're for the children, so here's a story for the children. I currently have 2 boys in Rise Prep, one 15, one 14, both in 9th grade in their high school division. The name is Nathan and Scott Davio. I have 2 scholars at Rise Prep Academics, and I couldn't be more grateful for the impact it had on my family. Let me tell you about my older son, Nathan. Back when he was attending at Harris Elementary School, we were facing serious challenges. Nathan was testing 3 grade levels below the national average. And we were told he had social anxiety. They referred him for an IEP, but when I requested proper testing, the Woonsocket education system told us we'd have to wait 8 months. 8 months? No. That wasn't an option for us. So we paid out of pocket for an independent testing to figure out what was going on. We made the tough decision to hold Nathan back in 3rd grade because the Harris Elementary School decided to push him forward. To enroll him at Rise Prep as well. And honestly, it changed everything. At that time, he was 3 grade levels behind the average Rise Prep 2nd grader. Had an extensive IEP, but with Rise Prep support and teaching methods, he made incredible progress, years of growth in a single year. By the middle of his 1st year, Nathan was performing more than 3 grade levels above his grade placement. Yes, above. And that wasn't just our observation, it was backed by map data. Since then, he has been a top performer, excellent in ways we never could imagine. Enrolling him at Rise Prep was without a doubt the best decision we ever made. The rest, as they say, is history. I'm not going to read the rest of this, but I do want to leave this off. These kids are being educated, just like my son Nathan, on a lower budget than what the average Woonsocket student has. My oldest daughter goes to North Smithfield High. She's a Woonsocket resident as well. She gets her full funding. How is that not fair? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Cat Waller.
Hello everyone, thank you for giving me this time to speak. I am Rise Prep's Chief Financial Officer and I'm also a founding staff member. We're going to hear a lot of different points, both in the written proposal and then across all of the comments today. I just wanted to hit on a few. Traditional districts are protected by maintenance of effort. You all are intimately familiar, but basically the communities are required to keep level funding for their local districts. Charter schools don't have that protection. With the clawback that was introduced in 2017, now there's an advanced calculation that RIDE has to perform on all of our behalf that nets a result that's different for every school and different in every community. Rise Prep saw a 63% reduction in local share. Beacon Charter saw a 24% reduction in local share. It varies widely year to year. And so, in our attempt to try to predict this, it's difficult. But we do believe that if we were to remain a mayoral academy, it's reasonable to assume that moving forward, the clawback is going to be triggered every year. It's kind of a vicious cycle. And if so, one of the things that is different about mayorals versus independent charters is the unfunded pension liability. Woonsocket's unfunded pension liability grows every year, whereas our other sending communities, it remains mostly flat. So, in our internal models, we've assumed that the unfunded pension liability will continue to grow. It is entirely possible that in the next several years, Woonsocket's local contribution to Rise Prep could fall to zero. The statute doesn't speak to what happens in that scenario. That would be uncharted territory for everyone. A lot of the comments today also talk a lot about how we are influenced by local politics, and that's not good for scholars. Or for kids in the traditional district. We don't need to be having these fights. We could be working together to make a more equitable funding formula. Because any formula based on property tax will be fundamentally inequitable. Thank you all.
Thank you. Rosalind DeCruz.
Good evening. My name is Rosalind DeCruz and I'm the founder and executive director at Rise Prep. We are respectfully requesting the council's support for a major amendment to our charter. In our 10th year of operation, we feel it's both necessary and beneficial for our school to transition from a mayoral academy charter school to an independent model. 2 years after we opened, an additional calculation was added to the funding formula that creates a clawback, but based on unfunded pension liability. As Kat just spoke to this much more eloquently than I can, I'll skip to the part that over the past 6 years, this has cost Rise Prep about $1.2 million that has been able to be held back by the local district of Woonsocket. This is due to the pension liability. Rise Prep, at this point in our time, with the teachers that we have, many of those who've come with us from the very beginning, is excited to join the pension system. We think it's a great fit for our teachers. We know it's a great fit for our financial model. And truthfully, it's not fair to our scholars any longer to have this growing, astronomically growing amount of money reduced from their education as their special education needs grow, as their multilingual learning needs grow, and truthfully as their mental health needs grow. So we are excited for the opportunity for the council to consider us opting into the pension. We also want to be clear that with the funding for Woonsocket as a whole needs to be revisited. It is not good for any children. We all operate with the same exact funding, except for right now, Rise Prep has 63% less in the local share of that insufficient funding that we're talking about tonight. Lastly, Rise Prep's looking forward to a time in which we can solely focus on teaching and learning in our kids. Our kids are doing pretty incredible things despite having so much funding cut. So I can only imagine what is in store for them and their futures and their education when we can get a little bit closer to hold with their local share as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Emily Williams is here virtually.
1 second, Emily, we can't hear you. Emily?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, sorry. Hi, so my name is Emily Williams. This is my 5th year teaching at Rise Prep. I am the 5th through 9th grade multilingual learning teacher. I am speaking in support of Rise Prep's application to transition from a mayoral academy into an independent charter school. This shift would allow Rise Prep staff, including myself, to join the Rhode Island pension system. I know that the promise of a pension upon my retirement would provide me with financial stability during that phase of my life and is a factor that I consider when making decisions about my career. Providing pensions to Rise Prep staff members would encourage strong, experienced teachers to come and work at Rise Prep and stay at Rise Prep, which would enrich our community and the quality of education for our scholars. I love the job that I get to do every day at Rise Prep, and knowing that I will have financial security when I retire would allow me to stay at Rise Prep long term and keep doing the thing that I love. This amendment allows for our scholars to keep more of their local share funding, which is essential as we serve the growing needs of our multilingual learners, scholars receiving special ed services, and all of our scholars who need additional academic or mental health support and resources. That's all.
Thank you very much. Leticia Diaz. She's also virtual. Why don't we hold Leticia and go on to the next person? Maybe she's not on yet. So this one is also virtual. Isaac Supo. I see that one. It's green.
Isaac?
Oh, are you able to hear me?
Yes.
Okay, I'm sorry. I'm currently having problems with my webcam. Would it be okay if I continued without it?
Yes.
Okay, so thank you. I'd like to begin by saying good evening to all. My name is Isaac Supple, and I'm a Rise Prep High School scholar. I am speaking in support of Rise Prep's major charter amendment request. I have attended Rise Prep school since kindergarten and it is now my 10th year in this school. In my kindergarten year, we did not know that the school would be able to open until 3 days before our first day of school due to political and legal pushback in our community. And trust me, there has been a lot of pushback. I call it our community because I've grown up in Woonsocket and I'm a product of Woonsocket public education. My public school just happens to be Rise Prep. I actively play sports with my peers in the district and contribute to leagues and groups within my community, as well as volunteer in drug prevention areas and work with homeless people. I am a proud member of Woonsocket's community. However, it is not lost on me that I receive less than half of the local share of funding that belongs to me in the Funding Follows the Child funding formula in the state of Rhode Island. If I were to have started my 9th grade year at Woonsocket High School, I would receive $2,600 of the local share for my education. However, because my family and I chose for me to continue to excel in my education at Rise Prep, I received around $957 of my local share. As a state that supports school choice, this clawback of funding does not feel as if our choices are being supported. This is true and even more critical for my peers at Rise Prep who may have very different and more significant needs than myself. Every dollar matters in educating every child, and we are all Woonsocket children, no matter if we attend Rise Prep or Woonsocket High School. My school is requesting this charter amendment to adjust our teachers' retirement and make the funding of our schools more equitable to other charter schools in Woonsocket, such as Beacon Charter High School and its affiliate middle school founders. The way I see it is that this amendment is good for all Rhode Island teachers in the pension system, helps keep the great teachers we have in Rise Prep longer, and makes sure that all kids in Woonsocket, like myself and my peers, have the funding and resources necessary to receive the education that we all deserve. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you very much. Carolyn Sheehan is in person.
Hello, I'm Carolyn Sheehan. I'm founding executive director of Blackstone Academy. It's my pleasure to be with the council tonight and have the opportunity to highlight our 23 years of accomplishments as a unique standalone high school charter, which exclusively serves students from Pawtucket, Central Falls, and Providence. We hope to see a 5-year renewal for our school moving forward, given the evidence of success within and beyond our charter renewal packet. We've only just recently received this write-up, and we hope that you will ask us directly to explain any of what you see in front of you, and if possible, come to visit our school. As a standalone high school, we'd like to make sure you're aware that the majority of high schools in Rhode Island have earned less than 3 stars in the accountability system, whereas the bulk of elementary schools earn 3 or more stars. So while we continue to work hard to achieve, there needs to be a deeper examination of this contradiction as the charter accountability system continues to evolve. An area of pride for Blackstone has been our ability to meet our original goals, getting first-generation students prepared for higher education and meaningful careers, as well as getting students engaged in their communities in ways that give them lifelong knowledge and skills as change agents. How do we show that we've met our original goals? Let's start with the overwhelming number of students who enter and graduate from higher education after Blackstone. Not only do Blackstone students attend higher education in larger percentages than similar students, our most recent national clearinghouse survey shows that our graduates have 15% higher enrollment than state average in higher education. Our graduates have consistently sustained their attendance in higher education, and while most of them attend schools like our wonderful state colleges and universities, we have also an extraordinary amount of students who get accepted, and currently there's about 26 students who are at colleges with 15% or less acceptance rates. That's something we're very proud of, and we think really shows and highlights ways that our students are prepared. Thank you so much.
Eileen Carpenter.
Good evening, my name is Eileen Carpenter and I'm the founding principal of Blackstone Academy Charter School in Pawtucket. We're extremely proud of our 23 years of growth and success, and the achievements of our graduates are evidence of that. I'm pleased that not only do they work at Blackstone, both on staff and on our teaching faculty, but they comprise about 30% of our board of directors. They also work at NASA, study at Yale Medical School, and are members of the National Society of Black Engineers. Graduate Angelise Rosal was just elected to the Pawtucket School Committee in November. Unlike the other 1 or 2 star high schools in this year's charter renewal cycle who are recommended for a 5-year renewal, Rhode is putting forth only a 3-year renewal for our school. This is due to 2 indicators: math scores and post-secondary success. I'll provide evidence to counter that recommendation. Regarding our math scores, our math strategic plan has been in effect since the pandemic. Our math scores are higher than virtually every high school in the state serving a similar population. And with the help of a CSP grant from Rhode, we engaged in deep analysis of our students' test performance to identify areas of strength and growth. We changed our math course progression 3 years ago. Within the last 6 months, we secured 2 grants from Rhode supporting algebra readiness and a math instructional coach. Our growth in math moved from 1 to 2 points in the accountability system this year, and it was our biggest leap in the academic indicators. Our strategies are working, they just take time. for post-secondary success. 3 weeks ago, we were informed that Rhode changed the calculation method for this matrix, resulting in an accountability focus area. However, 2 years ago, we enacted a plan to increase student opportunities to earn credentials. AP Spanish Language was added to the curriculum last year, and this year we offer AP African American Studies. We've doubled the number of students earning college credit in dual enrollment courses and will add additional dual enrollment courses in 25/6. Given our documented improvements in math and our math strategic plan and a sudden recalculation of the post-secondary success category, I come before you today to boldly request that the council consider a 5-year renewal for us rather than the 3 years recommended by Rhode. With our continued stellar graduation rate, excellent student and staff attendance, massive improvement in our ELP indicator, and positive trends in all 5 academic measures, we're on the right track to succeed and request 5 years to prove that to Rhode and the council.
Thank you very much. Dr. Patrick, please.
Good evening. Thank you, Commissioner and members of the Council, for allowing me to speak this evening. I speak before you tonight in opposition to the amendment to convert Rise Prep Mayoral Academy to an independent charter school. I had a prepared statement here, but I'm going to kind of skip that, and I'm just going to speak from the heart. I'm not against school choice. Now, you might find that a public school superintendent saying that doesn't make sense, but I'm not. I think we would all agree here that funding formula needs to change because many entities are not adequately funded. And Woonsocket is one of those. And I'm not going to go through all of the statistics that I'm sure many of you are familiar with. But if this application is approved, the Woonsocket Education Department is slated to lose $500,000. I don't know how familiar you are with the Woonsocket Education Department, but I can tell you that we have many challenges, as does Rise Prep. We service the same community. Our challenges have made it very difficult, and we work very hard in the Woonsocket Education Department. We have 4 schools that are CSI schools. I'm not proud of that, but we work hard, and we are continuing to work hard to turn those schools around so that we see more success across our district. But losing another $500,000 is not going to make that any easier for us. Last year, I had to make the very, very difficult decision. No superintendent has to make a decision whether they're cutting a reading specialist, or they're cutting a 4th grade teacher, or they're cutting a social worker. Those are the decisions that we had to make last year, 42. If this continues next year, I'm going to have to make more of those tough decisions, which will directly affect our students. We want to show improvement, but if we're losing money, that's going to make it very, very difficult for us. Thank you very much.
Paul Bourget.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Paul Bourget. I'm the chairman of the Woonsocket School Committee. Thank you, Commissioner, council members, for letting me speak. And I'm in opposition of this change from a mayoral academy to an independent charter school, and I'll tell you why. At your last meeting, you spent some time talking about how great the Rise scores are. And I agree with that. They have a great education. Wonderful. We don't argue about that. We're very proud that you have that. But then you went on to talk about the poor WED scores, our scores within our schools. In addition, you mentioned that we have 4 schools, 3 elementary and 1 middle school that are in CSI. And then, Commissioner, you said, we are concerned about Woonsocket. Well, if you're so concerned, why do you think we're here tonight? It's not because we're objecting to the quality of education that Rise scholars, students are getting. It's because of the impact, the financial impact that this will have Your job is to make sure that all students do well. In WED, we have 5,400 students from Woonsocket. Rise has got 500 right now. If you allow this, as the superintendent said, there's $540,000 that's leaving our checking account, that's going to the Rise checking account, and that's 5 or 6 people. Superintendent said we had to get rid of, we had to let go 42 people. A lot of them social workers, behavioral interventionists. We cannot afford to lose more. You look at our scores in Woonsocket. Poverty, special ed, MLL, opioid crisis, and homelessness are abounding. And some of those factors can't be corrected overnight. You take away this $540,000, which is not like what Mr. Osborne said, oh, it's a nuance. This is not a nuance. I'm a CPA by trade. I work very closely with our finance director. This will impact people, and it will impact them where we need them the most, to help our kids who need the services the most. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Alan Leclerc.
My name is Alan Leclerc. I'm on the Woonsocket School Committee. Thank you for having me. Appreciate your time. I had a few things to say, but as far as the unfunded pension liability, as far as the state's concerned, it's more of an entry on the state. It's more of a bookkeeping entry on our side. We pay for our teachers. The teachers pay their share of that liability, that pension. So the state, that's on the state for that pension and liability, pension unfunded liability. So that money that's going to be taken, that's going to be given away, like Mr. Bourget just said, that $500,000, we have to make it up somewhere. It's going to come from somewhere. And it's going to come from salaries, or it's going to come from other issues that affect the students, whether that be, sorry, I'm losing my train of thought, or education issues. So, but I'm all over the place. I find it a little off-putting that you had a non-action hearing last week. Last we had that hearing. Rhode feels they don't need to give you the financials submitted to WED. When you had that meeting last week, let me backtrack. When you had that meeting last week, it was a discussion meeting, it was not a non-action meeting. At that meeting, you were supposed to be given that information so you could have these discussions. It seemed like it was a one-sided affair in that discussion, where you weren't given the testimony that was done at the previous meeting in Woonsocket, you weren't given the financials that were submitted by the Woonsocket. Those have been handed to you, I guess given to you today or earlier in the week, so you have them now. So it seems like it was a little lopsided from Rhode, where that information should be given to you prior, so you could have that information where you could ask important and informed questions tonight before you make that decision. Sometimes given a booklet like you have prior to getting here 2 hours before, there's a lot of reading prior to understand what's going on. And in Rice's application, they say that one of the main reasons for the change is financials. They're having financial problems, and it seems they are changing their charter, to me, by adding elementary and high school. Then they changed over from a mayoral to a charter to increase their funding. The WED cannot increase its funding, so we lose money regardless of where that money, regardless of what they do, we will lose that money. Woonsocket's finances are extremely thin, and they cannot handle any decrease. We cannot just come up with $500,000 this year, never mind in future years if those enrollments get larger. So it will be a never-ending cycle. For every dollar we lose, there will be a layoff or an education, or education will suffer. Woonsocket will be next in line for Rhode to take over if you approve this change. It's just given time. Thank you for your time.
Mr. Leclerc, I just wanted to let you know that the documents that you speak of, that we request,
Yep.
when we get the agenda, which is days before.
So you have a couple days to digest that.
All right. I just want to let you know we don't get them.
Much appreciated.
We get the book to follow along, but we are getting things electronically.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Sorry about that.
That's okay. I just wanted to let you know that we do get stuff ahead of time. Lynn? Thank you. I usually see my last name.
Good evening. My name is Lynn Bouvier-Kapiskas. I'm a member of the Woonsocket School Committee and also an attorney licensed to practice law in Rhode Island and Massachusetts. Today I speak to you in both capacities. Mayoral academies and independent charter schools are creatures of state law, specifically created by the General Assembly. That law permits three distinct types of charter schools: district, mayoral, and independent. Mayoral academies are established and governed by Rhode Island General Laws 1677.4-1 and following. Independent charters by Rhode Island General Laws 1677.3-1 and following. These laws have different eligibility criteria and operational mandates. Nothing in the current state law or regulations permits a mayoral academy to amend its charter in this manner, thereby bypassing the statutory requirements for an independent charter school. Rhode Island General Law 1677.4-2 allows the mayoral academy to submit a proposal for a major amendment. Those are specifically detailed and defined as changing grade levels, changing the number of seats, and changing the catchment area. Rice Prep's amendment does not fall into any one of these three categories. Rhode Island General Law 1677.3-1 states that only eligible entities can submit a request to establish an independent charter school. An eligible entity under the law must be either A, a Rhode Island nonprofit organization that has existed for at least 2 years and must exist for a substantial reason other than operate a school, or a Rhode Island college or university. Rice Prep's major amendment request makes no mention of any college or university and no nonprofit that exists for a reason other than to operate a school. While there's a passing reference to the Boys and Girls Club, there is nothing in the request document that indicates that this nonprofit club is seeking to establish this charter school. If the Rice major amendment is viewed as an application by Rice itself to establish an independent charter, that effort still fails as a violation of law. The reason is simple. Even if seen as a nonprofit, Rice exists solely to operate as a school, contrary to the statute, which requires that the establishing nonprofit entity must exist for some other reason. Furthermore, there was no part of this proposed major amendment which would or did meet the financial disclosure requirements to the state order as required by law. In short, there was simply no statutory authority for what RISE is asking you to do, and for what the Commissioner of Education is recommending that you do in granting RISE's request for major amendment. I respectfully request, and with great urgency, that you stop this attempt. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Robert Stewart.
My name is Robert Stewart. I'm the president of the Socket Teachers Guild. I'm a retired judge advocate. I'm here to ask the council to please reject the amendment to change Rice Prep's governance structure from the narrow academy to an independent charter. The council should take into consideration all the students in the Socket and the community when it balances its decision. Our star here to provide the greatest educational benefit to the greatest number of students. Sounds like an education first year on. For example, when it came to the school construction, newer viewers, the watchword expression, and that direction obviously recognized that there are limited funds to provide the greatest benefit to the largest number of students. At times, this means some neighborhood schools may not be built, but more students could be educated in a newer building. I can follow this logic from financial efficiency. I don't always agree, but I can follow the logic. Now, the Rice Prep Amendment, they seek to expand from 640 students, supported financially from multiple communities, to 1,060 students, supported primarily from just Woonsocket. The Senate communities have since looked at, Rhode and Smith have looked at this and said, we don't want that damage to our cities and our schools. They're doing everything they can to opt out of this. This is not what Woonsocket initially agreed to, nor is what the city council, the school committee, and the community want. RISE has also published an organization chart. In Woonsocket, now we're setting up a parallel school system. We already have a superintendent, but now we're going to have a founder, executive director, founder, superintendent, CFO, COO, chief personnel, director of enrollment, director of data, technology, facilities, transportation, recruitment, all those extra positions out of the same pot of money. And in a universe of unlimited funds, no one should complain. But we know funds are limited. In the not too distant future, Woonsocket is expected to shoulder this financial burden without the benefit of sharing the burden with other communities. Woonsocket will be forced to take resources from its already underfunded 11 schools to ensure RISE can have this expansion. There will be even more pressure to take funds from kindergarten classes with students at pull-ups, trying to have reading circles without a teacher assistant take that with students in bathroom furniture. This is not helping the greatest number of students in the most economically efficient way. Please reject this charter amendment. This amendment is not an extension of the original mayoral charter. This is a whole new construct subject possibly to legal challenge. Think about all the Woonsocket stakeholders here. We're calling agreement against this.
Thank you. Donald Burke, I believe he's virtual.
Donald? Yes. Mr. Burke? Switching back up.
Why don't, so we have Donald? Why don't we try to get Donald, try to get the next person and we'll come back to Donald? I don't know. You have, while you're working on that, we'll call Jerry LaValle. Okay?
It's all right, it's mispronounced a lot. My name is Jerry Leverly. I'm not an educator. I'm a reformed banker. But I understand people, money, and common sense. Mayoral academies are required to have a mayor as its board chair. By nature, this forces Rise Prep to be a part of the political conversation and induces partisanship, which we've already seen tonight. I made a note, as difficult as it is these days, let's put politics aside and do the right thing. And I can give you, not 500, Paul, but I can give you 631 reasons to do the right thing. And that is to convert to an independent charter school. For the current school year, the Woonsocket Education Department withheld $840,000 from Rise Prep's budget due to factors in the funding formula, specifically to withhold funding from mayoral academies. Over the past 6 years, $1.1 million has been withheld by the Woonsocket Education Department. All the while, Rise Prep has continued to fully educate the scholars, and you notice we call them scholars. That's part of the special culture at Rise Prep, by the way. Woonsocket pays $2,640 for students to attend district schools. It pays $2,067 per student for the Beacon Charter School, 22% less. It pays $977 per student at Rise Prep, 63% less. By paying into the state pension system and converting the school to an independent charter, Rise Prep will retain more of its allocated funds per pupil as designed and deserved. And just one other thing, I'd like to talk about just two things. The culture of Rise Prep is very, very special. You have to see it to believe it, so you're invited anytime to come by and see. And just one point, Rise, respect, integrity, self-determination, and excellence. And those are all good things that happen at Rise Prep every day. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Wilson. We're gonna go back to Donald Burke. Still muted? Mr. Burke, there we go.
All set?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Can you hear me now?
We can.
Sounds like that commercial. Okay. Good evening, members of the council. My name is Donald Burke, Vice Chair of the Woonsocket School Committee and a retired educator of 45 years in both public and private schools. I speak tonight to ask you to reject Rise Prep Mayoral Academy's application for a charter change. I hope you received our documents and information for this meeting tonight. items which we did send to you also for the last meeting, but seemingly you were not given those items at the time. Now tonight, I have two concerns to share beyond the financial, which you have heard already. First, in July 2024, the mayor of Woonsocket, as chairman of the board, and the director of Rise Prep signed the application for the charter change. Not until November of that year, 4 months later, did the Woonsocket Education Department and the Woonsocket School Committee hear about this application. Why was it seemingly kept secret for those 4 months? It was not until that November, in the commissioner's memo, where we heard about this charter school change. Also, we were also informed in that memo about the one public hearing which was going to be held 2 days later. Why the rush, and why were we not given more time to prepare our evidence to testify at that meeting? Second, 2 months ago, Rise Prep Mayoral Academy advertised itself in the local paper as the Rise Prep Academies. In fact, if you read its website at that time, you would read Rise Prep Academies, parentheses, formerly known as Rise Prep Mayoral Academy, end parentheses. Wait a minute. Isn't that what you are voting on tonight? So, Rise Prep Mayoral Academy is already doing what it wants, even without your vote. Why is this so? Does it not recognize your authority, or else it knows how you are going to vote already? None of this sounds right. I ask you, though, to do the right thing and to support the 5,000 plus students of the Woonsocket Education Department and reject this application, which seemingly is unlawful in state law, a financial burden to the Woonsocket Education Department, and finally, unethical in this process. Thank you, and have a good evening.
Thank you. Virtual, I think it's Joseph Yari.
Hello, can people hear me? Hi, so my name is Joseph York. I am a current Rise Prep history and ELA teacher, as well as club coordinator. I've been a teacher for the past decade, and I've taught at numerous different schools. I'm speaking here in support of Rise Prep's application from a mayoral to independent charter school. I also had a much more prepared statement, but I'm going to change it up a little bit. After listening to a lot of what was said, I understand all the perspectives, but one of my most important jobs as a teacher is not just to educate, but to also stand up for my children and what they need. Every day I teach about 106 students. I see them come from a range of backgrounds and different needs. And switching to whether it's struggling financially, whether it's struggling emotionally, whether it's needing to know that they are loved and treasured as they enter the building, or whether they need to be taught how to write a proper paragraph. My job is not just to educate, but to also let them know that they are taken care of and that I'm standing up for them. I chose to speak to you guys because it felt right to stand up for my children, my students, to make sure that they're given the proper funding that they need to be successful, to support them in special education, in technology, in resources, small group instruction, one-on-one, as well as even just clubs to keep them safe after school in a more proper academic environment. I'm also speaking because I care about my fellow coworkers and friends who work at the building, as this would allow us to join a pension program to help us as teachers continue being strong educators and support ourselves, our loved ones, and our families. A lot of individuals who spoke have said how they don't have anything against teachers or students, and I would love to see a support in the amendment to show that we do support students and teachers both financially and not just with our voices. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay. Nayoka Powell in person.
Good evening. My name is Nayoka Powell. I come before you both as a parent of a child diagnosed with refractory epilepsy who benefits from an IUP for PTSD while she attends St. Pius here in Providence. And I am also the director of Rhode Island Families for School Choice. Thank you, Commissioner and members of the board, for opening the floor to us tonight. Rhode Island Families for School Choice is a group of volunteer parents, families, and community members. We aim to provide resources to parents, students, and families through the community engagement that we do here in Rhode Island for primary and secondary school students. In almost like a, excuse me, in a school fair form. All schools are invited. We highlight a vast array of schools that Rhode Island has to offer at no judgment. We bring everyone to the table, and parents are able to ask questions, sign up for visits to the schools, and be able to ask the questions that they truly need answered. Sorry, I get emotional. In January 2021, Governor McKee and the General Assembly recognized National School Choice Week and the importance of it here in Rhode Island. And so in true form, we ask that every school here gets a chance to show what they have to offer to our students and our families here, because this is supposed to be a nonpartisan situation. Every child deserves to be in the best environment possible, and every child needs to get the accommodations that they require. And I thank you so much for fighting for this, because this is definitely something that hits home for me. And I'm surprised I'm still standing here because I get so emotional when I talk about this, because I grew up in a third world country. I know what it feels like to not have anything and have to pay for school while still trying to survive. And these resources that these kids need are quite essential. So let's come together, fix the problem, and get these kids to the next level so that we can all be prosperous in our lives. Thank you so much.
Sarah Christensen.
Hi, good evening. My name is Sarah Christensen. I am an English teacher at the Green School in West Greenwich. I'd like to extend my deepest gratitude to the Department of Ed for recommending the Green School for a 5-year renewal. This recommendation reaffirms your commitment to supporting innovative education and recognizes the unique opportunities that the Green School provides to students from across Rhode Island. The Green School is more than just a place of learning. It's a community and an experience unlike any other. Our focus on expeditions and wilderness immerses students in a hands-on, experiential learning environment that fosters curiosity, resilience, and a deep connection to the natural world. Whether students are navigating a trail, conducting field research, or engaging in interdisciplinary intensives, they are not just learning about the world, they are learning in it. Our students travel from all corners of the state to attend the Green School, drawn by the promise of an education that challenges traditional boundaries and encourages them to think critically and act boldly. This diverse and dedicated community of learners and educators thrives because of their shared passion for sustainability, exploration, and personal growth. In my time as a Green School teacher, I have experienced my own growth and transformation, thanks to the collaboration and mentorship of my brilliant and compassionate colleagues. I feel confident calling myself not only an English teacher, but an environmental educator. I speak on behalf of them when I say that we remain passionate about inspiring students to care for the world around them and equipping them with the tools to make a difference. This renewal is not just a vote of confidence in our past, it is an investment in the future of education. It allows us to continue our mission to empower students to become stewards of the environment, leaders in their communities, and lifelong learners. We implore the council to uphold the Department of Education's recommendation for a 5-year extension. We invite you to come and visit our campus in the woods and see firsthand just what makes the Green School such a special place.
Thank you very much. Well, that concludes the comment section. Next on our agenda, we have our discussion items, and our first.
Excuse me, I wasn't called, and I registered. I sent the email in this weekend, and I left actually 3 phone calls with your office to make sure that I was registered to speak tonight. I also registered on Friday.
Your names?
I have the email here if you'd like me to forward to you.
Just, Chrissy, could you check with those 2 gentlemen?
My name is Joshua LeBlanc. I emailed on Friday.
I don't have it. Can you forward it for me?
Sure, I'm using my phone. My name is Patrick Ford. I actually left, I believe, 3 phone call messages. Are you the young woman who is addressed to?
Christine?
Yes, I left you 3 voicemails this weekend and today.
I don't have an email from you, sir.
All right, well, I mean, you want to go there? The battery's dead on my other phone here. Let me hook up my laptop.
Just let them stay here, they spent the whole. Yeah, come on up. Just state your name so we have.
Hi, I'm Ian Shasky. I'm an educator here in Rhode Island. I want to preface by saying that as an educator in Rhode Island, I do not inherently have anything against charter schools. I think school choice is great. My problem is with how the funding is allocated between charter schools and traditional public schools, especially as they do not have to abide by the same rules. You want to talk about fairness here, as someone mentioned earlier. Woonsocket Education Department is legally obligated to educate every and all students in Woonsocket. Rise Prep is not. There are students that Rise Prep is physically incapable of educating. Those kids have to go to Woonsocket, which they bear a tremendous cost. The RICR says there is no legal mechanism to expel students from a public school in Rhode Island. Yet in Rise Prep's own student handbook, it says if you don't abide by their rules, they can remove you as a student somehow. So where do those kids go? It's the Woonsocket Public School Department, where they have to be put into expensive, self-contained, behavioral programs that the Woonsocket School Department bears at tremendous cost. How is any of that fair? It is inherently much more expensive for Woonsocket to educate students because a lot of their students require more expensive, programs and processes. This transition will cost Woonsocket School Department 5 to 6 full-time teachers in terms of funding. That's 125-ish kids that are going to have to be dispersed into already packed classrooms. How is that fair? We're talking classrooms that are pushing 25, 26, maybe even 30 kids per classroom. Ask any educator in the state if any classroom over 18 kids is manageable, okay? This change will benefit 500 kids at Rise Prep at the harm of 5,500 hardworking kids in the Woonsocket School Department. I have to ask the board here, how many of you currently have a child enrolled in Rhode Island traditional public school? How many of you have even taught in Rhode Island traditional public school in the past 5 years, 10 years? Things are a lot different now, okay? Have you talked to anyone, any family from a student enrolled in Woonsocket Public Schools, any teachers there? So how can you make these decisions?
You obviously don't know our background very
Oh,
well.
I looked every single one of them up.
Okay.
Every single one of them up before I came here. I'm not.
Thank you. Okay.
Sure. Actually, that gentleman there, did you want to go first? Would you like to speak before I do? Okay. Ooh.
Hi, for the sake of brevity, I've dismissed my original remarks. My name is Pat Ford. I work in the media. I spent a lot of time in Woonsocket and covering the school department and the city council and the financial issues surrounding the school. Briefly, first of all, I want to say as a parent of two now college graduates, I have a great deal of empathy and sympathy for the love of a parent who wants to see nothing but their children receive the best educational possible. And as someone who children did not attend traditional public schools and did not attend charter schools, we pay for ourselves. I have engaged personally in a great deal of sacrifice to make sure that that happened. And I'm blessed because my children weren't faced with any of the significant challenges that children face now, learning differently, having multiple languages, extreme poverty. A lot of that, sadly, is focused in a community like Woonsocket, which is a struggling middle class to working class to quite poor community, not in spirit, but in finances. Briefly, there's a notion here that Rise Prep is not going to be political. Well, first of all, it's very arduous political. The fact that the mayor is the chairman of the, if you will, at some level of the school is political. Equally more political, though, is the notion that, number one, this board seems to have managed to avoid doing some level of fiscal note or fiscal analysis on this with any large degree of preparation ahead of time. And that's disturbing. Whether the law says you had to or not is irrelevant. Just what's the old saying? Just because you don't have to do something doesn't mean you should. In the spirit of transparency, and quite frankly, in the spirit of honesty with taxpayers and with community leaders here who have turned out in force from the very moment they heard about this, you owe them that, and you owe taxpayers that. So I would, first of all, urge you to put this on hold until a significant level of financial scrutiny is applied to this. The notion, as the gentleman earlier said, that this was withheld until the very last minute, it was almost accidental that these folks found out about it. Listen, finally, of course it costs less to pay per student. And of course the test scores are higher. I've used the term cherry-picked very often, intentionally, because it's irritating. But ultimately, there is no honesty whatsoever if you're going to attempt to compare the results of a cherry-picked near private prep school, bearing none of the burdens, financial or philosophical or psychological, that the Woonsocket Education Department has to deal with on a really heroic, historic daily basis. There's simply no legitimacy in comparing those numbers. I would hope your numbers would be significantly better, because they're not. Then we've got real problems. I'm begging you to put this on hold, provide the level of scrutiny that is being asked for by the civic leaders. The degree of unanimity that I see in a town like Woonsocket right now over the issue like this is near historic. I'm a political observer of nearly 35 years, and I have never seen a single community come out so opposed, so diametrically opposed to everything about this issue as I've seen right now. So please, put the brakes on, spend some time, do the level of fiscal scrutiny and analysis that this issue certainly deserves for all the children in Woonsocket. Thank you.
Good evening. I apologize, and thank you for allowing me to speak. My name is Joshua LaPlante, and I have been the head of school superintendent at the Green School Public Charter High School for the past 9 years. I'm here to express my full support and appreciation for the Commissioner's 5-year recommendation for the school's renewal. For the past 6 years, the Green School has consistently been the highest performing charter high school in Rhode Island. Entering COVID and our last renewal cycle with strong praise from the State Department of Education and this council, to then returning post-COVID with similar outcomes because of the incredible efforts of the school teachers, staff, students, and family. The most current data set highlights the Green School as the only school in Rhode Island to show statistically significant gains in any area on the state assessment, outperforming state and national averages on both SAT, reading, and mathematics.